everybody. Welcome to the third session. We're pleased today to welcome Erik Stenbakken. Erik manages a real estate portfolio and vacation long-term rental properties across the United States and has been investing in real estate since 2010. Prior to this, he spent more than 20 years as a photographer and videographer serving clients nationwide and previously worked at Indian Adventist University in marketing and communications. Please join me in welcoming Erik.
So I want this to be participatory. I've got some of these little notebooks. If you don't have one, raise your hand. We'll have somebody get one to you because I want to encourage you to take notes. I've got the slides set up. If you pull out your cell phone and take pictures of the screen here, that's totally okay too, okay? I want to invite you to do that. I'm going to set these down right here. But before we start, a story. After graduating from Union, I moved immediately to Orlando. And one of the biggest, most awesome things that happened to me in Orlando, aside from getting engaged, was buying a boat. I loved boats and the water and the ocean. I was a scuba diver. I'd lived in Micronesia. And I talked my housemate into going 50-50 with me on a boat. So on one occasion, a friend and I decided we were going to go diving off the East Coast, the Atlantic side of Florida. So we went down and got to the area where we were going to go launching the boat and decided to have lunch first, which was doubly valuable. One, because we wanted lunch. Two, because right beneath my sandwich was a map. Now, I didn't have a map of the dive sites. I didn't have a map of how to get out to the ocean, because you'd be forgiven for thinking that you could just drive up, there's the beach, you just put your boat in and you're out in the ocean. Not on most of Florida. There are canals and waterways and inlets and all kinds of ways that you've got to just navigate through, kind of like a road system, to get to the ocean. Well, I didn't have a map for that, but this restaurant had kindly provided one for me. Plus, saved me 20 bucks. I had looked up, actual water navigation maps. I'm like, those are expensive. I was a grad student. I didn't have that kind of money. So I've got this fabulous map. We launched the boat. We used the map. We got out to our dive sites. Pretty amazing. We did our diving. Everything was awesome. No problemo. We got back in the boat to return. Problemo. As it turns out, when you have two wet scuba divers handling a paper placemat map, that's a bad recipe. So as we're heading back to shore, with every bounce of the boat and salt spray coming over the bow, our map is dissolving fast. The sun's going down. And so, like most young people, we're like, well, we'll just increase the throttle. And what that does is it gets you lost faster. I want to provide for you a map that doesn't melt. Okay? Goals are maps. And it's a metaphor that I think works very well because a map is not the destination. It's a way to get to the destination. See, a goal without a plan is just a wish. And I remember taking my son to a class party for school. He's in high school. And we visited one of his classmates' homes. And it was a huge home. Absolutely amazing. The kind of thing that I don't even know if they would put it in an architectural magazine because it looks unattainable. Okay, this was an impressive home. We got back on the bus to go back to school, and the students, of course, were like, oh, that's amazing, that's so cool. I want to be rich and get a house like that someday. Okay, cool. My wife asked him, so what's your plan? Like, YouTube. Like, really? You're going to get that house with a YouTube channel. Tell me about your YouTube channel. Well, I don't have one. Oh, okay, what's your backup plan? Lottery? Friends, that's how it works if you don't have a plan, if you don't know how to get to where you want to get to. Because really, a goal system is how you get there from here. Have you ever heard the expression, you can't get there from here? Well, if you don't have a plan to get to your goal, you can't get there from here. If you do have a plan and you do have a system, you can get where you want to go. Now, the reason that I'm doing this presentation is because I am one person. But you are many. Can't count you. I'm not a Rain Man. Can't get that. But you all can have more impact when you leave here than I can have by myself. So I am investing in you so that you will get closer to your goals, thereby impacting more people. Does that make sense? So I'm investing in you and counting on you. You have a role to play after this, not just to sit and listen. Now I'm going to introduce myself. That I am Erik Stenbakken. I've got this down here in the bottom with my email. You'll get a bigger one later. But so if you do a screenshot of that, go for it. Okay? I encourage you to do that. I want to help you build maps that do not melt. And by the way, we did make it back to the dock. There was a little bit of figuring out, like, what are we doing here? Where are we going? Probably some dead ends and so on. We got out after dark, which I don't recommend, but we did make it back. Now, before we start on our here's how you get your goals, I want to start with a few bewares. All right? Beware number one is, I'll be happy when. Right? Because we think if you haven't hit a lot of goals or big goals, it's really easy to think, well, I'll be happy when I hit that. There's a book I didn't bring. There's a bunch of books down here. Be glad to talk about there, and I've got a bibliography at the end. But there's a book called Happier. And at the very beginning of the book, Happier, he talks about the inability of achieving goals to make you happy. Now, if you haven't hit the goals, you think, well, that doesn't make any sense. Of course it'll make me happy. Maybe you've heard the Jim Carrey clip where he says, I wish everyone was famous and rich. Then they would know being rich and famous isn't the answer. If anybody's rich and famous, he should know. So you have to find joy in the process, because by its very nature, a goal means you're not there. Does that make sense? If I have a goal, it means I'm not there yet. And if you will only be happy when you get there, when will you be happy? Never. Right? So you have to find joy in the process and in the journey. Beware number two is mixing up causation and correlation. Right? We think, well, when I achieve my goal, maybe I won't be happy, but if we hit our quarterly sales numbers, we will definitely save the company. Maybe. Maybe not. Hitting sales numbers is a good thing, don't get me wrong, but it's not a guarantee. Okay, take this one, a little closer to home. If I study for 4 hours, I will definitely get the A. Oh, we want that to be true, but it is not necessarily the same thing. One doesn't necessarily cause the other. Now, people who get A's, do they study? Yes. Does everybody who study gets A's? Not necessarily. Okay, so when you're thinking about goals, please don't mix up correlation and causation, right? Hitting your goal doesn't necessarily cause the good thing you want to have happen to happen. Just a little bit of caution. And beware number three, I am going to quote the mighty Peter Drucker. There is nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. Okay? And in management circles, this is essentially what this is. Maybe you've heard this analogy, is climbing the ladder faster only to find the ladder is against the wrong wall. Okay? So that's goal. That's beware number three. Make sure you're headed in the right direction, which is why we are going to start with identity. Now you might think, oh, this is a goal-setting workshop, not about like finding myself. Well, guess what? This starts with finding yourself. This just does, and there's no way around it. So let me ask you a quick question. Which is the best way to spend $300? On a $300 air gun or $300 tap shoes? It depends if you identify as a marksman or a tap dancer. Okay? So the goal, this idea is like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that does depend, right? It does depend on who you are and how you see yourself and where you want to go. This is why identity matters in goal setting. Because everything we do comes from identity. Now, let's be honest. We all want the results, right? That's where we want. We want all this other blah, 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 blah. No, just give me the results. It's kind of like a friend of mine said, you know, I thought I wanted a job, but it turns out all I really wanted was a paycheck. Yeah, except you got to do the job to get the paycheck. So results come from habits. You tracking with me here? Habits come from words and actions. Words and actions come from your thoughts. Your thoughts come from your beliefs. And your beliefs emanate from your identity. So you start with your identity, then you move to your beliefs, then those generate thoughts. Those become words and actions. Words to self also, okay? Not just what you say outside. The words that you say to yourself probably matter even more because those are the words that eventually get said to others. Those, when you repeat them long enough, become habits. And when you repeat habits long enough, you get results. This is why we start at identity. Now, we're going to spend a minute talking about how to program your identity. Did you know you can reprogram your identity? Now, I know this makes some people uncomfortable. It's like, like you can just like identify as a polar bear and you're a polar bear? No. Okay, but stick with me here. I can, let's suppose I don't deal with a cold and my company reassigns me to Alaska. And I think, what am I going to do? I can say, instead of like, I'm a person who I can't deal with this, I can say, you know what? I am a person who can survive and thrive in the cold. And I can tell myself that and I can take steps towards that. And that actually, here's the weird thing, changes your physiology. It literally actually can change your ability to handle the situation differently. And you think, wow, that sounds crazy. And I know it sounds like woo. When I first heard this, like, oh man, this is just too weird. I don't know if I can go there with you. But the more I've studied it, the more I've read it, the more I have done it, I can tell you this is a true thing. It can be done. So we're going to actually work on this. So this whole thing here is going to be partially me sharing theory with you and partially participatory. All right? That's why you got the little notebooks. If you didn't get one, if somebody else came in and wants one, I've got a whole stack of them here. All right, let's send some to the back. We've got some folks who want to get one. Because I want you to be able to take notes and write this stuff down because it can change your life. Okay, so writing I am or I will be or I choose. Okay? I know I talked about this in a YouTube back a ways, and I said I am, and I had a series of statements, and a friend of mine said, well, shouldn't you say I am with the power and grace of God working in me continually? And then if you want to write that out 21 times a day, go for it, all right? I just did I am. So we're going to practice reprogramming the I am. And let me tell you a cool little story about that. Is when I first started this, I started writing I am statements. And one of the I am statements, and you can do this aspirationally, or we're going to get into that in a second. I said, I am a published author. And I would write that every day. I am a published author. I am a published author. I am a published author. About 6 weeks in, I'm like, what do published authors do? Not a trick question. What do? They write. They publish. And so I thought, well, maybe I should, I don't know, write a book proposal. And so I was like, oh, fine, I'll write a book proposal, which I did. And I sent in and they said, this is fantastic. We've also got somebody under contract for this exact same topic. I thought, bummer. And then I kept reading and they said, but we love it. Why don't you write us another book proposal? And I thought, well, I'm all out of ideas. I only had one idea. That's not how it works, okay? And so it turns out, I was like, wait a minute, I do have another idea. So I pitched that to them and they said, that's awesome. No, we don't want to publish it as a book just right now, but how about we'll hire you to do long form blog posts. Now this was for the #1 real estate education platform in the world. And I went from, I am a writer, I'm just writing this down in my basement, you know, and to, we would like you to publish a long form series. Wow, it happened. And not only that, it didn't turn into a book, but it turned into a year-long podcast. So if you want a fun podcast, and if you're interested in real estate, you can look up the Real Estate Pessimist podcast. Yes, it wasn't all sunshine, as you imagine. We went ahead and we told the truth about real estate investing, and boy, did we have stories. Okay, so it became a podcast because I kept writing I am. So let's talk about this and say, how do we do this? Okay, so if you want to do this reprogramming, how do you do it? Your statement, your I am, I choose, I will be, needs to be stated in the positive. It needs to be believable, action-oriented, and focused. Let me break down what that sounds like. You would say, I am patient versus I am not losing my temper. You see what I'm saying? One is a not, and somebody told me this, I don't have the science to back it up, but I have the experience to back it up. Your brain skips the not part. I am not eating chips. Just say that over and over and drop the not. Right? When you're driving, if you're driving and the roads are the conditions are bad, you're like, I will not go in the ditch, I will not go in the ditch. Where are you going?
Into the ditch.
Okay, enough said about that. You have to state it in the positive. It has to be believable. If you want to aspire to run and you say, I am running a 4-minute mile. Well, hey, if you're running a 4:10 right now, go ahead. Right? But otherwise, if you said something like, I'm running 6 times a week. Okay, that's a lot. But what if you said, I'm running 6 miles a week? Okay, that's believable. We could do that. And it needs to be action-oriented. It's something you can actually take progress towards, and it needs to be focused. One of my I ams is, well, I do them in the I choose format now, is I choose investment in family and friendships. I choose investment in family and friendships. And you know what's really interesting? What that led me to was buying a fire pit. It's like, what? Okay, because I had a fire pit, and I love sitting out in back, roasting hot dogs, s'mores, and so on like this. We've even had the Britons over to our house once upon a time. Camped in the backyard, did some of that. Because I looked at it and I thought, wait a minute, that's an expensive fire pit. But wait, I choose investment in family and friendships. That made sense because that's a goal of mine. That's something that I value. Now, I drive an old truck, over 100,000 miles on it. Don't care. I plan to drive that thing to 250,000 miles. Right? That's not a priority for me, is to have a fancy truck. To have a fire pit in the backyard, for me, is a priority. It's the tap shoes versus the pellet gun. Right? So let's do one. Let's do an I am statement. What is something you could state in the positive that's believable, action-oriented, and focused? Your students, you guys have aspirations, right? Think about this in 5 years. What could you say I am?
I am the best software engineer.
Say again?
I am the best software engineer.
Okay. I am, well, the best? We're going for the best in the world in 5 years?
No, I am a good software engineer.
Okay. I'm gonna take that up. Okay, I am a great software engineer. What do great software engineers do to get to great?
Good problem solving skills, good critical thinking skills. And just overall good at solving problems.
Okay, good at solving problems. Okay, so now let me put this to you. If he says, I am a great software engineer, and a problem comes in front of him, which normally it's a problem. Oh, wait a minute. You just said solving problems is taking you toward your destination, right? So is that problem a setback, or is that a step towards where you want to be? You see how that reframes that? And so as you do these things, as you write your own, whatever they are, it will reshape how you see things. I don't have time to get into that. But truly, when you do these things, it actually, literally, it's a thing called the RAS in your brain, changes what you're able to see. It's amazing. Okay, so let's keep going with goal making. We'll keep going. Let's do another one. Let's do one more of those. Let's look at that. Yep, let's do one more. What is an aspirational, either I am or I choose? What is an I choose? And see, you want to set it so that you stretch to get there. Right? If it's already I am, like I am a student at Union. All right, you got that. Right? You could take it up a notch. You could say I am. What else do you want to pick? Where do you want to be aspirationally? We got one back here.
I will be a New York Times best-selling author.
Okay. All right. What does somebody have to do to be a New York Times best-selling author? It's the first thing you got to do. Eventually you got to write. Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you something. This reframing really matters. Right? Have you ever heard of the concept of first draft, second draft, revisions, and so on like this? Yeah. So you've got to do the first draft, and the first draft is going to be, I'll put it politely, crummy. All right? But that's okay. That's okay because you're working towards this. And if you've got that in your mindset, and somebody says, hey, we've got a writer's workshop here, and it's led by a New York Times best-selling author, and they're going to talk about how to do this, and it costs $2,000. We might say, if we didn't have that as a goal, $2,000 for a weekend talking to somebody about writing, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to, oh, wait a minute. But if that's a priority of ours, it's like, well, hey, you could put chrome wheels on your car for $2,000, or you could go to this workshop. You see, having these goals helps you sort out your priorities. You'll say, that fits, that's the direction I'm going, or nope, it doesn't. It's very clarifying for you. Right? There's different types of goals. Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I didn't know any of this stuff. When I was university age, I had no idea of this. My goal is like, yeah, I'll be a teacher. There we go. We're done. That's it. That was my goal-making abilities and skills in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it. There's two types of goals, process versus outcomes. And we usually look at outcome type goals, right? I want to have X number of dollars, or I want to have this type of grade, and so on. We pretty much know what outcomes are. That's data. Anyone with access to the data could tell me, okay, this young man sitting right here, if he had a goal, and I said, well, what's your goal? And he said, it's to have this many such and such. Well, if I can look at the data, I know, did he make that goal or did he not? Pretty straightforward. Does that make sense? It's an outcome goal. I'm going to work on this for a year, and when I'm done, I'll have 100 widgets made. Well, if you line them up and you count the widgets, it's pretty easy to see, did I do it or not? Right? That's how a lot of spreadsheets go. That's how a business goes. Process, if you're in business, is more like culture. We will improve the culture of our company. Can you line up the cultures and count them? No. No, you can't. Process goals are just as important, but they're different. Process goals are usually measured in instances or time. Okay, so example. I want to learn the piano is a goal. Did I learn the piano? Kind of hard to say, right? But if I have a process goal and I say I will practice 3 times a week, 30 minutes per time. Now I can count those, and that's moving towards my process, right? Whether it's whatever it happens to be, that's a process goal. Now, I want to ask a question, speaking of goals. How many of you would like to be richer than you are right now? See hands. Okay, keep your hands up. Have you guys seen the Oprah show where she's like, and a car for you, and I've got a car for you? Have you seen that? Keep your hands up. You want to be richer. Okay, I got a nickel for you, and 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 a nickel for you. Okay, so hey, you can just pass them around. Go ahead. All right, so I'm going to take you through Smarty goals. Okay, we'll have to see me later. If you raise your hand and get a nickel, if that's going to make a difference in your life, please see me later, okay? We're going to talk about Smarty goals, and the first one in Smarty is be specific. Instead of saying, I wish I had more money, and you get a nickel, had you said, I'd like $500 by the end of this workshop, I would say, that's an awesome goal. Go see her. Okay, but when you're making goals, you've heard of make SMART goals, yes? Perhaps. You make your goals specific. That's the who, what, when, where, or how much. You want to make your goals measurable. You'll never know if you hit them if you can't measure them. And this is not only important as a team. We think about this like, well, if I'm going to hire her to do this, I need to tell her how many widgets have to be done by the end of the month. We get that, right? But we often neglect this when we're talking about our own goals. Have I hit my own goal? Have I not? I don't know, because I never actually was explicit about it. And then we're forever in the working towards phase, right? the never getting there phase. Make them actionable. Make it real, okay? So, example, I want to make the world smarter. Well, bless your heart. But if you said, I'm going to give a $500 scholarship towards books for for children who can't afford them, that's actionable. Like, that's an actual thing. You can write that check to that organization. They'll put the books in people's hands, right? So nebulous goals are goals you don't ever hit. They have to be relevant, and they have to be relevant to you. So here's, see, we got somebody with their phone out. That's the idea. So we'll get them all up here in a second. Make sure they are relevant and relevant to you. If you're pursuing someone else's goals, my parents want to be a lawyer, but I hate it. You're going to suffer, right? You will suffer. If you're pursuing your own goals and they're relevant to you, that matters immensely. They should be time-bound. And I know this sounds constraining, like, why do I have to be time-bound on this? This just sounds so much pressure. Well, you know what? If you don't have a deadline, are you going to do it? No, you're students. You know this. Right? If you don't have a deadline, you just won't go for it. Guess what? When you get out of school, you don't have people in your own life showing up saying, well, you got to have that done by Friday. Because if you don't, who's going to get on your case about that? Nobody. So set your own goals and have them time-bound. I will finish X book by Y date versus I want to read more. Well, read more what? I saw a billboard on the way, like, I guess that counts, right? Well, that's more. A nickel is more. You're richer than you were when you came in. All right? So time-bound. I will X by Y time. And this is the last one, Smarty. I don't hear people talk about a lot. And that is in your control. This is a big one. Now, if I say, I will film a comedy sketch with my friend Jordan by Friday, who do I need to be on board with that? Jordan, yeah. And if Jordan's like, sorry, I'm just not feeling it. Well, I get to Friday, have I missed my goal? Yes, because I was counting on somebody else to be part of my goal. This doesn't mean you never work with people. Now, what I could do is I could say, I will ask Jordan to film a sketch with me so that we're done on Friday. Now, can I do that? Yeah, that's 100%, because how many people in your life can you control? You can count them on one finger. You. That's it. And so when you're making goals, make sure that the outcome of that specific goal, if you're setting as a goal, is in your control. Now, I can say, I will apply for medical school. That's in my control. I will get into medical school. Other people get a vote in that. Okay? This is very clarifying and helpful because you will take the steps that you can take without saying, well, I'm just waiting for them to come through. Because you can wait forever for that. Okay, so let's run one through the Smarty test right here. I'll keep this up. If this was a goal, I'm going to be a motivational speaker. Is it specific? Not really. Is it measurable? No. Like I tell my dog, good job. Like, does that count? Right? No. Is it actionable? Not kind of, not really. Is it relevant to me? Well, if I identify as a motivational speaker, sure. Is it time-bound? Nope. I'm going to be a motivational speaker. Nope, it isn't. And is it in my control? Well, yes, but I haven't outlined it. Versus, I will present a goal-setting workshop at Union Adventist University on April 10, 2026 that will include teaching, interaction, and resource information. Is that a goal? Yes, all those things. Here's why I'm telling you this, is that when you do these things, when you set your goals with these things in mind, it actually steers your boat. You know where to go, and you know where to not go, which is just as valuable. So here's a vague one. I want to be richer. We already did that experiment, right? But here's a specific one if this is you. I will have $9,500 in the bank by April 1, 2027, so I can buy a 2015 or newer Subaru WRX sedan. Do we know where we're going now? Do we know by when I need to get there? Do I know how much I need to have by that time? Yes. Right? So this is I know it seems like, wow, it just seems like it's work to put this together, but I will tell you, if you do this kind of homework for goals, whether it's in business or your own life, it has the amazing capacity, and it is borderline magic, all right, of getting you to where you want to be. It is absolutely incredible. Now, most goals are built backwards. They're from. We say, well, I'm here now, and I want to be there. How do I get there? Right? Our natural inclination is, well, what's my next step? Not so fast. Actually, we want to start with our destination and then work backwards from there. And here we're going to do a little exercise together. So I'm going to read a goal for you, and just real quick, think about the Smarty right here. I want to run, I don't want to run, this is a metaphor, right? I'm just making that real clear here. I want to run a marathon in Minneapolis on September 20, 2026 in under 6 hours. Okay, so we got this. So we're going to work backwards from that. What are some of the things that I need to do that in September? Train, okay, that's good. We'll run it through the Smarty test, and it's like,
Run 5 days a week.
okay, now we're getting more specific. But if we were to move towards this backwards and say, all right, so I need a training program. What else am I going to need? Shoes. What else might I want to do? Register. Yeah, can I even get in? What are the qualification things? What other things do I have? Now, I'm going to run 26 miles. Now, maybe if I was starting tomorrow, I wouldn't run the full 26. Maybe I'd start off at 24 miles. Like that. So, okay, what am I going to do?
Start build on it.
Yeah, I'm going to start building. Maybe I'll walk 2 miles, and then I'll jog a mile, and then the training program would help me with that. You see how this works? How we ramp up towards this? It makes sense when we think about it like this, but then we sit down and make our goal. I'm going to make $100,000 my first year after graduation. Well, you must have quite a ramp. Okay. When we stop and we think about it, we're like, oh yes, we work backwards from what our goals are, and then we get closer to where we want to be. Now, I want to share with you that my goal system has evolved a lot. I didn't start off with it. I think my first goal type thing of it wasn't a goal, it was tracking, is that my parents gave me a little notebook and I was supposed to keep track of where I spent my allowance. Like, okay, you're going to get $2 a month, and where did I spend it? I had to be accountable for that. And then I skipped a couple decades, wrote some goals down on a 3x5 card, only because I was doing a youth group when we lived in Omaha, and I said, hey, let's write some goals down. I'll do it too, sure, why not? And I wrote my goals down on this little note card. They did too, lost mine, moved to Colorado, found it, and you know what? I'd hit them. When you write down your goals, and the closer to Smarty you write down your goals, it has an absolutely incredible magic. I'm going to say that, you interpret it as you want to. Power to get you towards those goals. This is why you choosing what your goals are is so important. Because if you get to your goal and you discover this is the wrong place, that's a bummer. Now, I joined, I did a thing called a personal annual report. I did that for a couple years. If you're interested in that, I can send you the PDF of how to do that. Because think about this, as a business, if your business is to make widgets, and somebody came to you at the end of the year and said, how many widgets did you make? He's like, I don't know. Would we take him seriously as a business leader? No. Well, absolutely not. But if you say one of your values is to spend time with your significant other, and I say, how many times did you do that last year? And he's like, would we think he was serious about what he had said he was going to do? Right? See, it's easy. We think, oh, when a bank does it, they should, how many loans they did, how much they increased their revenue, blah, blah, blah. Those goals are fine. But for personal life, we get to the end of the year. Have you heard this expression? Wow, that year went fast. Where did the time go? And people say what? I don't know. Well, you know what? I got a stack of goal sheets about this high. I can tell you exactly where my time went. I can tell you that I worked out 64 days in the first quarter of this year. I know that for a fact. How many hours did I put into real estate? I can look that up and I can say, well, last year I think it was about 1,600 hours. working as a real estate professional. That's a tax status. I can tell you that, and I can tell you on which days I did that, and I can tell you what I was doing on those days for that time. I know where my time went. And your personal life should have that same accountability. When you say like, oh, I identify as a tap dancer. Okay, fine. How many times did you dance last year? I don't know. Then I don't think you're a tap dancer. All right, let's keep moving on. I'll share with you my current system. And I start with the long range. You'll see these all up on the screen here in just a second. But one of my long range goals, well, there's two here. Two long range. These are really long range. One, it says neighbors together forever. That's our family motto. Neighbors together forever. If I had a tombstone, they'd be on it. Seriously. So what does that mean? That means I measure what I do to that. Now what exactly does that mean? You'll notice this too. My really long range goals are not smarty goals. They're a direction. Okay? They're not a specific, they're a direction. That's not by accident. In 10,000 plus 1, that's you. I have a stated goal to impact and move 10,000 people plus just one more towards the kingdom in my lifetime. But guess what? I need you to help me. I can't do that on my own. So that's a stated goal. When somebody says, hey, do you want to put a bunch of work in and come to talk to a bunch of people you don't know about their goals? Well, guess what? If that's moving you towards your goals and you can impact the world in ways that I can't, yes, that is moving me toward the future of a goal that I have. And you'll do it in ways I can't imagine. I also have, you have a hard time reading it, and that's okay. It says vision for June 2027. Then there's another one that says vision for June 2028. And come June this year, I'm going to write one for June 2029. They are I am statements, family and friends, partner and love, personal growth. And they're all I ams. This is I am in partner and love. 3 years from now, this is where I want to be. I write that stuff down. And I review it every year. And I review sometimes quarterly. Because that's the direction I want to go. That's long range, right? 3 years. But then, in this little notebook, which I'll be glad to show to you, I have the yearly. These are directions, but then it goes to my habits, my middle goals, and I track some specifics here. I actually write this stuff down. You think, hey, dude's a maniac. But guess what? I get things done. Okay? I had a business coach, and that business coach said, okay, here's your 3-year plan. And what do you want to have done? And I outlined this stuff, and he said, no, dream big. Just be ridiculous. Like, fine, okay, here we go. Less than a year later, he says, well, you hit him. Now what do you want to do? And I said, honestly, I have no idea, because I didn't think I could ever hit him. Because I didn't have any kind of system. Right? It was like swimming, but in no direction. And as soon as you learn how to aim and put your energy to get, what do you call it? You know, there's a light bulb and there's a laser. Which one is going to cut through, you know, a surface? You know, it's focus is the only difference. It's focus. So I do quarterly, and this is where the magic is. Okay, if you skip everything else, quarterly goals is where it's at. And I've got a book down here. I've got a whole bibliography I'll share with you at the end. It's this one right here, the 12-week year. It's the book that launched 1,000 others. I mean, not 1,000, but a couple hundred. Okay, this is where it's at. And people have taken ideas from this book and rewritten it a bunch of ways. This has the ability to move your life and your business forward pretty much in ways that it's amazing. Okay, it's really amazing, very practical, tactical book. So I look at quarterly goals. We're going to break this down. We'll get into it later, but basically it's quarterly. The little thing at the bottom, you're wondering, what the world is that? It's called the Wheel of Life. You can look it up. You just hit Google, and you can look those up. And I use that as a metric for where am I going, where am I now, where do I want to be. Then weekly. You can actually check my progress, right? I did that one on the 5th, and I've logged some of my stuff here this morning. And you're like, man, that guy's so obsessive about all these things. But you know what? I get them done. Right? One of these on here is, do I do my core exercises 6 days a week? And you know why I do that is because of my lower back. I had a motorcycle, I had a mountain bike, I've crashed them both, I got a fake tooth from a skateboard, right? So I've got things, and so I've got to stay in shape. Well, guess what? What gets tracked gets done. There's scientific evidence that if you so much as start writing down what you ate, your diet will improve. Don't even have to have a goal. You just write down what you ate. The very fact that you're tracking what you're doing makes progress. It's crazy, but it's true. And then I have a daily goal sheet. I work through daily, hey, what am I going to try to get done today? We can kind of get our heads around that. I've actually got some of these forms. If you want to see afterwards, I'll have them right up here at the front, and you all can take a look at them and see how I outline it. My point isn't to have you do it the way I do it. It's for you to come up with a goal system that works for you. And then accountability. And this accountability overlays all of the long range, monthly, quarterly, all that other stuff, right? Actually, not monthly. You notice I skipped monthly. It goes quarterly, then weekly, right? So this guy right here is Scott. He's a professional photographer. Also, I've known him for 30 years. Scott and I have met most Fridays for 13 years. Say, Scott, how you going? Now, Scott picks Scott's goals and I pick my goals. But I ask Scott, how are you doing on your goals? And he has to look me in the eyes, long distance, and say, yeah, it didn't do it. Or I did do it. Right? Accountability is a big deal. Now, right here is a book group. Here's how I did accountability. I said to myself, I want to read 12 personal development books a year. And I'd read somewhere, well, if you tell other people what your goals are, you're more likely to get it. It's like, fine. So I just put it out there on Instagram, like, yeah, I'm going to read 12 personal development books in a year. Anybody want to join along with me? I'm like, nobody's going to do this. I'll get off the hook. 30 people said, yep, we'll do it too. Well, guess what? When I've set the appointment for Tuesday night, the first Tuesday of the month, and there's going to be a bunch of people online who has to read the book? Me. Because there it is. Accountability does amazing things for you. Just pro tip, your accountability partner should not be your spouse. Oh, he's like, hey, how's that diet going? No, that's a poor longevity plan. I want to share a few pro tips with you, and I'm just going to blaze through these, okay? If you want to see them later, you want to ask questions, we're going to go for it. Then we're going to have some question and answer, all right? You are not your grand plans. You are your daily patterns. That's a quote from James Clear. Progress follows process. Write out your goals, preferably by hand. Again, I cannot tell you how this works, but it does. Accountability. If you really want accountability, offer to lead. Hey, we're going to have a running club, and we're going to start at 6:30 every Sunday morning. Well, guess what? Who's going to show up at your door at 6:30 in the morning? If you know that, you're going to be like, I got to get my shoes on because they're going to be knocking on my door, right? Saying yes to one thing is inevitably saying no to many things. Last year, I built, you've heard to-do lists? I built a to-not-do list. And I did. And I went through and I methodically said, okay, I'm going to leave that, I'm going to leave that, I'm going to leave that. If you don't pick a destination, someone else will choose it for you. Goal systems are like shoes. Try them on until you find one you like. Right? The ones that I like doesn't necessarily be what you're going to like. You got to try them on, see what works, and then try something else. Have you heard of the big rocks analogy? Well, you put the big rocks in the jar first, and then you can put the little rocks. Have you heard this one? The problem is there are too many big rocks. Okay? In life, there just are, and you're going to need to say no to some of those and prioritize. Habits are a muscle. Right? They get better with your use and experience. They are a muscle. You'll get better. So is goal setting. You'll get better at goal setting the more you do it. Now, I don't mean you're necessarily, well, you will, hit more of your goals. You'll get better at making goals. Right? It's a process. It's a learning curve. Social media makes us think that the wonderkind is normal. It's like, oh, man, here's this kid who can play all of Beethoven's repertoire by he's 6 years old. And I can barely get through the scales. Like, guess what? 50-50 chance that kid's AI anyways. And then the other 50% is like, that's not you. That's why you got on Instagram, okay? Don't make that your standard. Regularly validate your progress. That means just check and see, well, am I headed in the direction I want to go? Now here's the bibliography. I actually have these books right here. You take a picture of that. I'll go back to that here in just a second. And we can say, these are the books that I think mean the most when it comes to hitting and getting your goals. Or you can also just come up and take a picture of the stack, and you can see those too. This is me. That's how you get a hold of me. If you want to send me an email, you can. Go for it. You want to send me a text? Go for it. If you send me a phone call, it'll go to voicemail. Just saying. My phone number's been on the internet for decades, and I am on so many spam lists. Yeah, if we're not in the caller ID, it doesn't ring through. But if you text me or if you email me, I will reply. Okay? That's me. I'm going to go back here if you want to see it. I'm going to put this down and say, if you've got questions, let's go. One.
I have written down, how much does being humble and yet confident comes to reframing your identity?
It's a process. And it does. It does matter. Because you see, the moment I say I've got it all figured out, can I grow anymore? No. And in fact, if somebody comes at me with a new idea, I feel threatened. Because it's like, either that means I don't have it all figured out, and I don't want to believe that about myself, or you're wrong. And which one's easier? You're wrong. Yeah. So humility, absolutely. Got to say, hey, there's more to learn.
Yeah, so obviously creating these SMARTY goals and having these goals for yourself, you can't do it alone. And how have you gone about cultivating your circle? You mentioned accountability, and I think it's such a beautiful thing, but in a space where in college everybody's really trying to figuring out what's important for themselves, how have you gone about cultivating that circle and making sure that your inner circle, you guys are in alignment?
It's a process, and there's been many failed experiments. Just know it. You're going to try it and that didn't work out with that person. They didn't follow through. I didn't follow through. The dynamic wasn't there. Now, I've been part of an accountability pod where there's a group of us. We meet together once a week. They're also real estate investors. We have had about 100% turnover rate in that. But for the last 3 years, we've had a 0% turnover rate. So it takes some trial and error to get to where you want to be. Now for you, where you're at, start small. Say, okay, we're going to do this for 6 weeks. We're going to have an accountability thing. We're just going to try it out once a week. We're going to get together and talk about this. That's it. 6 weeks, hey, you can see the end of that, right? And it's not too long to commit to. Try it out. If it works, awesome. Continue it. If it doesn't, say, it just didn't work out. So that's what I would say. Now, to me, in my answer where I was, the accountability group that I joined about 5 years ago, I paid for it. I paid a couple $100 a month to be part of this, to be with people in a room that had also paid money who were serious about it. And it's a lot faster to be learning when people are like, is that going to be on the test? Versus, I want to learn this because it's for me. You follow? Yeah. So that's what I did. They're both valid.
I mean, with this like a SMARTY process and all this, and like once you have this goal, what do you do when, I mean, inevitably it's going to happen sometimes. What do you do when you still fail?
You can okay, so good question. When you fail, you set a goal and you fail because inevitably you will. You can extend your deadline. You can modify your goals. You know, you can, and here's the thing that I should add. Start with the smallest possible goal. Instead of, I'm going to read a book by the end of the week. Don't do that. Say, I'm going to read 1 page today. Can you read how many people here could read 1 page in a day? Right? You could probably all swing that. Okay? And then have you won?
Yeah.
Yes. You got your goal. Now you say, by the end of the week, I'm going to read 15 pages. See, so you start so small, you're winning. And then you move your way up, and then you move your way up. And then that builds the identity of a person who hits their goals. See? That's why being realistic in the SMARTY is very important. See, because if you're a person and your inner person knows, yeah, this guy, this woman, we're a person that hits our goals. We hit our goals. Then it gives you strength and confidence to do more. And then to do more and to do more and to do more.
How do you make sure your goals align with your identity so you don't end up chasing the wrong destination?
Good question. I don't know if you heard that in the back. How do you make sure that your goals align with your identity so you're not chasing the wrong thing? First, it goes to his question. You'll make mistakes. And you know what? That's important. You'll discover, I thought this was me, but it isn't me. Guess what? That's not a failure. That is success. And the sooner you figure that out, the faster you get to the right direction. When I used to do sales, this reframed it for me. Is people would say, oh, there's another no. And somebody reframed it for me and said, that is just that much faster that you get to the person who's going to say yes. Right? So in business, you've heard this, fail fast, fail often, yeah, and do it when the price is low. So absolutely, you know what? I heard this the other day, is that you should have a failure goal. You should have a goal for how many times you fail. And you should try to hit that failure number. Like, I'm going to launch this and it fails. I'm going to launch this and it fails. Because guess what? It's a percentage, right? If you're smart, you're going to have a percentage of those things that win. And if you've got a percentage that wins, the faster you get through the no's, faster you get to the yes. So don't fear failure. That's progress.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, how does like your identity in Christ kind of play into all of this?
It overlays everything. It goes back to my long range. Neighbors Together Forever, the 10,000 plus one. I track how many days a week. My goal is set at 7, I'll tell you. 7 days a week, I want to spend time in the Bible and in prayer. That's part of my identity. That's the very first thing. On the back of my goal sheet says I am. Like, I actually have it on the back of every page. And on the top of that, the very first one I do when I write these is I am a son of the King. It's the first one. It reframes who I am, where I'm going. That's where I start. That is a great place to finish.
Okay. Now we're wrapping up. We have a little gift for you, a little thank you. So we just want to thank you for coming out. Now we're moving into our keynote speaker, which is going to be downstairs in the amphitheater. So if all of you guys want to start making your way down there, lunch will be at 12. 12, yes. Okay.
Thank you.